1. My sister was 16 when she first got a boyfriend. He was around 6 foot and had black hair, brown eyes, tan, physically fit, and was a senior in high school. They met through mutual friends and hit it off pretty well. In fact, the two were inseparable since they did everything together. He lived about 10 minutes away, so he didn't have to worry about school and shit. The first time something seemed off was when I was playing a video game, and he had raised attention to my Stimpack count. My sister just said, "That's what happens when you don't have a life." I was pretty upset, and well, they just laughed and began making out. My sister was not like this normally. In fact, she was quite reserved, and this makeout session was fucking uncomfortable. Especially after he began to grind on her. I saved the game and went upstairs, turning on the TV. My mom asked what was wrong, and I was just not in the mood to talk. About several minutes later, I told her what happened and she confronted my sister. She accused me of being a pervert and lying. My mom was livid with her since she never acted this way before. It used to be a pack, now it was a makeout session on my couch. I didn't talk to my sister for a day or two, and even when we talked, it wasn't an apology. It was her complaining about my mom. Cut to May, and school was having prom. My sister doesn't give two shits about prom, so all she wanted to do was hang out. He, however, made a huge deal about it and wanted her in a dress he had picked out. She hated the dress as it hugged the body. She likes loose, flowing dresses. He was pissed at her and ended up talking to another girl, asking her to the prom. My sister was told by her friends about this, and she had confronted him, essentially telling him she would go with him if she could pick out the dress, but he just hated that idea. They broke up after this. In June, my sister played travel ball for a pretty damn good team. And well, I didn't have to go if I didn't want to. So I would play video games, watch TV, order pizza, and even nap. One day I saw a black car driving down our road, stop in front of our house and throw something in our yard. It was him, and he came 2 seconds later, I guess expecting my sister to come out. In reality, I walked out and he peeled out of there. On the ground was a picture of my sister, and her Italia armband had been wrapped around it. I called my dad, and he said that his shotgun was under the bed, and if I felt threatened to shoot the fucker. I'm a big softy, so that wasn't going to happen. He never came back, and I never had to raise the gun. A few months later, we had a house fire. He came after he heard about it and comforted my sister, but the dipshit eventually lit a cigarette. My sister was pissed, and my mom had to explain our house had just been damaged by fire. He didn't understand and just drove out. Later that night, his car came back, and he threw a Care Bear out his window. It was burnt, cut, noose around its neck, and we're freaking out. My sister's nickname is Care Bear, so this felt like an attack on her. So we called the police, and, well, my dad waited outside with his 12 gauge. Once the police arrived, he just told my sister not to give out her number. "Thanks, Officer Useless, you're a real hero." He called my mom later that night and apologized, but we were done. Cut to 2 years ago, and we figure out he was arrested for child porn. We figured he was dating a younger girl and she sent him pics. Then somebody saw them and reported him. Well, guess who came to our door around this time last year? Yep, him. He came and my dad spoke to him. According to him, he was all shook up and basically apologized profusely. His trial was a few days away, and we guessed he wanted a clean conscience for what was about to happen. I don't wish the worst on him, but sometimes you make shitty, in-the-moment decisions. 2. When I was younger, I used to do speed skating, which is a form of ice skating where you practice to become as fast as possible. I had 2 coaches. They are both pretty old. There are usually competitions at different locations where you go to compete with someone else. I had been doing ice skating for about a year at a time, and we had been traveling a lot throughout the northern parts of Norway, and we had actually traveled to Russia as well for a competition. We once traveled to a small peninsula which is located in the middle of nowhere. This little town contained about 2,000 people, and had one single hotel. It took about 5 hours to drive to this little town from my hometown. When we finally arrived, we settled in the hotel we had booked. For some reason, they had booked 2 rooms, one for them and one for me to be alone. At the time, all the others who used to practice ice skating with me had quit, or were not able or allowed to travel so far. At first, having a hotel room to myself felt great. I had privacy and free time to do whatever I wanted. While I was at competitions and waiting for my turn to compete, I made friends with a girl who we will call Marie. Marie was sweet and kind, and she made the weekend I was spending in that town a little bit more fun. We met later on the same day I met her and hung out at her school, where there was an arrangement. I figured it would be a good idea to bring her out to the hotel and hang out. Honestly, it was a great idea. We watched a movie and ate some snacks and had fun. Then at some point it was time for her to leave. It was pretty late, around midnight when she left. I was a very decent kid, so I followed her downstairs to the lobby to say goodbye. I was also intending on buying a bottle of soda water while I was downstairs. When she had left, I went to buy the soda at the counter that was close to the exit. There was a man standing behind the counter. He had an accent, so I figured he had moved to Norway from another country recently. He seemed very interested in me, and asked what I was doing in the lobby at such a late time. I told him I wanted to get a soda, and asked for the price per bottle as there was no price tag near. He told me that one bottle is 40 NOK, which is about $5. I decided that I would not pay that much for a small bottle of soda and said that I would be heading upstairs. The guy instantly started begging me to stay downstairs and talk to him. This scared me a little, but I felt as if I had to stay. He asked a lot of questions. He asked what my name is, where I was from, if my parents were here, who I am with, etc. I answered honestly to all of those, even though I felt threatened and unsafe. I knew not to trust strangers, but I have always had a thing for being nice to everyone. I eventually said I am tired and will go upstairs to catch some sleep. He tried to make me stay longer, but I decided to leave anyways. A few moments later, before I had gone to sleep, I heard someone knocking on my door. I thought to myself that it might as well just be one of my coaches who needed something from me. So I went to open the door. It was not either of them. It was the guy from before. He was holding a lighter, and in a very broken accent. He said he was looking for someone who lost this lighter. I said it is not my lighter and was about to shut the door when he put his foot between the door and the wall in my side and asked to come in. I was scared as hell and started pushing on the door. I remember very little about this part, but I can make out that I somehow managed to close the door and lock it. I immediately made a call to my mother, who called my coaches to tell them about the incident. I never saw him again after that. When we got home, my mother made a call to the hotel manager and complained about the incident. The manager said he will not charge the guy for what he did, and that he will not face any consequences, even though my mom kept telling him what the guy's intentions likely were. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the guy probably still works there to this day. I am so confused about this whole incident, and so incredibly happy that whatever I did stopped him from getting in and going through with his terrible intentions. 3. I am a 35-year-old female, and my story takes place when I was 15. But it feels like yesterday. It was the day that would change my innocent youth forever. I am from a little village in Ireland with a population of a few hundred. The nearest town is 10 miles away. Growing up in rural Ireland was very idealistic. Summers were spent playing football with neighbors, or going to the lake swimming till the sun went down. I was lucky that even though the population is small and the houses are far apart, my best friend's house was only down the road. So during those summer months, Mary and I were inseparable. My friend and I grew up with lots of brothers and sisters in a safe village. We were given a lot of freedom, and sometimes we were gone all day and only came back before dark. As it was the mid-90s, we had no mobiles, but our mums knew we would be okay and look out for each other. One thing we liked to do during these summers, besides going to the lake and hanging out at each other's houses, was to go to town and look around the shops. The easiest way to get to town was to hitchhike, as there were no buses. Here in Ireland we call it thumbing. Hardly anyone hitches now because most homes have 2 cars, and parents are a lot more protective. But back in the 80s and 90s it was very common. Our parents were okay with it, but there were certain rules we had to follow. I am not entirely sure who came up with the rules, but I assume our parents did. Rule number 1, never hitch alone. You must thumb with at least 1 or 2 friends. Number 2, never take a lift if there are 2 or more men in the car, but 2 or more women is fine. Number 3, never take a lift from someone in a van. There could be more guys hiding in the back, or worse, ropes, blindfolds, etc. Number 4 was the most important rule. When a car stops to pick you up, always ask the driver where they are going first. If they tell them where you are going first, they could pretend they are going to the same place to lure you in. We were innocent but had common sense, so we followed the rules down to a T. At least we tried to. My friend Mary and I used to hitch once a week during the summer. We would go to town with a population of a few thousand and look around the shops, eat ice cream and hang out. When we got a ride, we had to make small talk with the driver, and as 2 shy 15-year-olds, this bit sucked the most. To make it fair, we took turns sitting in the front, and did most of the talking. One day we spent a few hours in town. It was pretty uneventful, so we decided to thumb back. At around 3 p.m. we went to the usual spot to hitch from, just on the outskirts of the town. We were only waiting about 5 minutes when a white car pulled up. Before we could ask where he was going, he asked us first. My friend told him, and he said he was passing through our village on the way to another one. Rule number 4 broken, but he seemed nice enough and we just wanted to go home. It was my turn to sit in the front. The driver introduced himself as John, a farmer who was super friendly. He was dressed in a worn t-shirt with holes in it, and had tattered pants and smelled of cow shit. The car was full of bits of straw and was old and battered like the driver. He was about 60, had no wedding ring on. Don't ask me why, but I always notice these things. About halfway between town and our home village, he asked if we heard a noise. No, we replied. There it is again. Sounds like a banging noise, he said. I didn't hear anything, so just sat there quietly. I think it might be the exhaust pipe, he said. I'll have to pull in to have a look. He pulled up on the busy road and went out to take a look. I didn't hear anything, said Mary. He seems like a weirdo, I said. Call it intuition, but even though he was super friendly and chatty, I got a bad feeling from him. Next thing, he comes back to the driver's side and tells us that the exhaust is hanging down, and was hitting off the road. He needs us to help him tie it up. It was then that I noticed he had string holding up his pants instead of a belt. I thought this was odd. Anyway, he got some string out of the boot, same color string as his belt, and we both got out of the car. Although I got a bad vibe from him, I didn't feel scared at this stage. We were on a busy road and it was only about 3:30 p.m., so we both got out of the car. He showed us the exhaust pipe hanging down, and used a rag to hold it up because it was hot. My friend Mary took over holding it up while he secured it with the string. They were both kneeling while I just stood back and watched. It was then I noticed his fly was open and I could see his privates. He was clearly not wearing any underwear. He didn't even have a belt on, so I guess I wasn't surprised. In my head I thought, oh fuck, what is going on? Oh shit, oh shit. But I said nothing. I just stood there in shock. Mary hadn't noticed at this stage and just continued to hold the pipe. When John was standing up, he noticed his fly was open and acted all shocked. Oh girls, I'm so sorry and embarrassed. I only have a safety pin holding the fly together. It must have come off. Please forgive me, and get back in the car. Mary was stunned because she got a close-up of his privates, which left me to do the talking. I told him it was okay and that it was an accident, so we got back in the car. He fastened the safety pin even though I didn't see him look for it. All was hidden again. Back in the car, the atmosphere was very different. We both felt mortified and he kept apologizing over and over. I looked out the passenger window and repeated, "It's okay, it's okay." Then he said something that turned my stomach. Well, girls, you're taking it very well. If I didn't know any better, I'd swear you liked it. Then he nudged me in the arm with his arm, like you would do to a friend. I looked at him through the corner of my eye, my face still facing the window, when I noticed his fly was undone again and he was exposed again. He must have noticed me looking because he said, Oh, sorry. The safety pin keeps opening. Just don't look. Fine by me, I thought, but I said okay and continued to look out the window. He kept nudging me and saying, "Don't be looking, don't be looking." Giggling at the same time, he was doing this in a playful way, like this was a joke. Mary started giggling too, because when she is nervous she laughs. I knew it wasn't her fault, but I was getting angry at this stage. He wouldn't stop telling me to stop looking. Then he said, "Your friend is laughing, she must be enjoying the view." This made her laugh even harder. Now remember, we were both polite 15-year-olds that always respected our elders, and are a little shy, so I would never speak up to an adult. The nudging in the arm and my friend laughing was all getting too much. He asked was it the first Willie I've seen, and told me once again to stop looking. I was turned facing the passenger window, so much that I had my back to him. There is no way I could be looking. I lost my temper. I shouted at the top of my voice, "I'm not fucking looking. Mary, shut up fucking laughing." Silence followed. He said sorry, he was only joking, and I didn't need to be so serious. I said nothing and sat there red with temper. I should have told him to let his out. I should have told him to cover himself up, the dirty old perv. But I was in shock too, and part of me wanted to believe it was all an innocent mistake. We finally arrived at our tiny, safe little village. We got out and he said again that he was sorry about the whole thing. My friend got her voice back and assured him it was okay. I said it was all okay and to not worry about it. I said thanks for the lift. What he said back sickened me. He looked me up and down with this creepy smile and said, "Girlies, thanks for everything," and drove off. We were left speechless. We sat down on a nearby bench to process all of this before going home. We made a deal we wouldn't tell our parents, or they'd never let us hitchhike again. My friend got back her voice and repeated, "Pervert, sicko, smelly bastard. He had this planned the whole time," over and over. About 5 minutes after sitting down on the bench, who drives by going in the direction we just came from? Only pervert Farmer John, waving and smiling, while we sat stunned. He had beeped to catch our attention. So much for passing through our village. A few months later and the ordeal went to the back of my mind. Occasionally we would talk about Farmer John, but we made jokes about it, and we told some of our friends about what happened. One day I told a friend of mine named Bird. A cousin of hers had told her a very similar story. The cousin lived in another village about 20 miles the other direction from town. She was a few years older than us. While hitchhiking home one day, the same thing happened to her and her friend. The exhaust, the safety pin, the undone fly. It was no accident, and my worst fears were confirmed. Farmer John really was Pervert John. So to the man that smells like cow shit, has worn clothes, and uses string to hold up his pants, and to the man who gets off on exposing himself to young girls, let's not meet again. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 312. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'll just give a quick reminder because I forgot to do it in Friday's video. If you have any questions for the upcoming Paranormal 100 Q&A, you can pop those in the description of any video of your convenience. I go through about once a week, have a look for new questions, and I save them, so whatever is most convenient for you, or you can email them if you also prefer. We're having some real weird weather here right now. It's very hot and clammy, but I heard thunder earlier, and rain. So I wonder if the sun has indeed left us. I hope not. I'm hoping for a sunny weekend. I'm recording this on the Friday. And I've got things I'd like to do, so hopefully I got them all done. If not, I'll just have to stay home and stuff my face with sweets and watch films. I've been trying to watch a lot more films recently. That's why I've started kind of giving little recommendations if I've really liked something on a Friday. Something I kind of fell behind on for a while. I just couldn't get my head into a place where I could sit down and watch a film for a while. But I seem to be able to do that a bit more easily these days, so kind of catching up. It's kind of hard to find things I really want to enjoy. Right now I'm on kind of a horror kick, so I'm trying to find like horror type films I really want to watch. And just a bunch of very pretty but also very annoying people. Yeah, I like to invest in the characters when I can. Okay, and I suppose I should wrap it up there, really, shouldn't I? So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.